What do you get when you combine a joke with a rhetorical question?
I don't know. What? Oh, that's actually pretty good. That's funny. Good job. Well done, Brian. Good job.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome
to the
WizardCast.
You know, Brian, I got to hand it to you. I'm pleasantly surprised. That was actually a really good joke. It's very witty.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.
It was funny.
You know, Mark, it's hard to explain puns to kleptomaniacs because they're always taking things literally.
Okay. Good. You can stop now.
3 logicians walked into a bar. The bartender asks, "Do all you want to drink?" The first one says, "I don't know." The second one says, "I don't know." And the third one says, "Yes."
No, I don't get it.
Too smart for you?
I don't think you get it, Brian. I think you're just repeating it.
So 2 men walk into a bar. The first one orders H2O. The second one says, "I'll have H2O too." The second man dies.
Okay, that's enough. You get into chemistry jokes now. That's bad territory.
What do you get when you put a root beer in a square glass? A beer.
Okay, 2 can play at this game. 2 atoms are walking down the street. The first one stops and says, "I think I just lost an electron." The second one replies, "Are you sure?" "I'm positive."
I love that joke. It's so full of ions.
Why? Okay, what's up with all the jokes? Can we move on?
Speaking of jokes, now it's time to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, that's okay. You agree that our sponsors are a joke now because they're all faked?
This episode of
Highly
WizardCast is sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce of Lake Flow Begone. Come see the lake that isn't there because it's gone.
Why would anybody go to a lake that's gone?
Yes, so come to the lake and have your woe be gone.
Brian.
Yes?
You've got to get past all of the stages of grief. I know Garrison Keeler left for your home companion, but you've got to move on, man.
No.
You got to pick up the pieces, move on with your life.
No, he's never going to be gone from my heart. Never. You understand that, Mark?
These things happen to us for a reason. They have to teach us haughty journalists a lesson, Brian.
Well, now it's time for...
Wait, what? Huh?
Yeah. We got a question from Dale Ziegler about the difficulty of flow.
Well, yeah, but I didn't think it was actually a question. I mean,
what?
he sent us an email where he was basically talking about...
More like a dissertation. Holy cow. This thing's like 4 paragraphs long. I don't think I'm going to read this whole thing, Mark.
Well, but we had to talk about it,
I don't actually
Brian.
see any question marks in here.
Yeah, I suppose. What did he write about?
The difficulty of flow.
Last week's episode.
Well,
yeah.
You know, I don't think I thought this through. You know, if only we could talk to Dale directly. So let's pick up the WizardCast phone.
All right, okay.
And let's give Dale a call. Maybe he's still awake.
Okay, sure. It's pretty late, but all right.
Hello.
Dale?
Oh God, it's you guys. I mean,
yeah.
Hi.
I'm gonna need you to come in on Saturday.
Oh,
that would be
Sunday
great.
too.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Hey guys, what's up?
So Dale, you're on the podcast.
Yeah, we're recording.
We're recording.
You have to legally disclose that before you actually have me start talking.
What do you think we're doing now?
Yeah,
I've already
disclosing
said
now.
stuff, and then you said
nothing of
recording,
consequence.
So it went the other way around.
Yeah, we can edit it so it sounds like we did it in the right order.
Oh,
we can edit it out so it sounds like it never happened.
Yes.
Okay. No,
the wonders of technology,
we can,
truth.
We can
is
edit
malleable.
you out.
Yeah.
So Dale, for my mother who's listening and Mark's mother who's listening, which is basically our listener base.
Sure, right.
Tell us who you are and why people may or may not know you.
All right. So I am Dale Ziegler, now formerly the solo admin. I don't know if I owned the reins on that one or if I was just the more prominent face, but
One of the solo admins, yes.
not the solo admin, but
Sure.
an advocate
The avatar
for solo
of
admins. The
solo
advocate
admins.
for solo admins everywhere.
Exactly.
Now having stepped into the consulting space with this guy who thinks he's Yoda. It is the weirdest thing.
Oh,
That's-
yeah, I know that
that's
guy.
so
He's
weird.
such a jerk.
I mean,
I don't know
I'm-
why.
I'm not a
Why
Star
would you do
Wars
that?
guy, but I know that Yoda kind of has his own language. So
Why would
I'm having to figure out how to speak like properly. That it's not proper English, like subject, verb, object. Now
Yeah.
it's subject, object, preposition, verb. It's
Why even take that job with you? I mean, come on.
But yes, now in the consulting space, and
Thank you, assistant director.
yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, my dissertation was it struck a chord with me from one of your earlier podcasts where somebody took issue with the
let's talk about
difficulty
this.
of flow, and
Right.
it got me thinking that difficulty is an incredibly subjective term. It's
True.
I don't think it's a fair term to be used to brand the applicability of anything.
Just saying something's difficult and leaving it at that. That's what you're saying?
Yeah,
Like, you can't
and
just do that?
Yeah, you can't just do that and use it as a reason to potentially discard that tool. I think difficulty comes with a certain level of expertise, but then this is where I start to think about how we all have our own natural skill sets, things that we're good at, things that we enjoy doing, things that we're really good at doing. And Salesforce as a product and as a community, really as a whole, has given us the opportunity to bring our natural skill sets and try to make the best out of them and to grow from there. And
learn new ones.
And to learn new ones as well,
Right,
because
right.
with what you naturally know, that builds a foundation, and then from there, there's several opportunities to learn and grow from there. And that's why it struck me kind of weird to hear somebody say that something was difficult when I'm willing to bet they're not actively using it. Maybe they've tried it and had a few hiccups and gave up, but
Well, it's always tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, and you raise a really good point. I mean, if you think about it, anything we've ever done the first time has been difficult. I mean, think about you and I. We both have kids, right? I'm sure we can remember when our kids started walking, right? How often do they fall down?
Almost all the time.
It might take a step, right? They fell down all the time. It was insanely difficult then. But they kept at it, and they took some guidance in from parents and maybe siblings and other children, and they eventually are probably now running around the house and causing havoc, and we look back on the times that they were stationary with fondness. So it's the same thing for everything we did. When I started with Salesforce in 2007, I had no experience with Salesforce, never heard it. Everything was brand new to me. So the whole idea of creating these things called objects and stuff like that was very challenging. I had some parallels because, I worked on an ACT database once, and I could understand Excel, so I can kind of get the idea that, like a worksheet could be the same as an object and column headers were the same as a field. But it was just a foundation that I had to then say, okay, that's similar. Here's some details. Learn with a lot of trial and error and falling on my face quite a lot until I'm now running around with ease.
Right.
Here's the thing about anything, okay? Because there's essentially two ways to look at this. The thing about anything is that if it's going to be hard, yeah, you're going to have trouble. Period. Like that's the very nature of it. I've started doing Taekwondo, right? It's not easy. If you're not used to doing physical exercise, if you're not used to memorizing forms, if you're not using your brain and your body in that way, it is hard. And the first time,
you must find it very challenging.
The first time, my first session that I went, unfortunately, I'm not always the most. I tend to be a bit gung ho about certain things, and I didn't really watch myself and keep track of how I was doing and how I was breathing. And, they're having us do all these exercises, and I was not prepared until the point where I had to sit down because the room was spinning, because I wasn't breathing at all. Like, I was apparently bright purple, and I had to go sit down and sit out the last, 10, 15 minutes because I worked myself so hard.
I wish I had a photograph of that.
And that's what I think some people hit when they try to go up against something like flow. They bite the dust
And turn purple.
and it turned purple. and
Right.
and they're like, why did I ever do this? Why am I ever trying? On the other hand, here's the thing about flow. It is hard. It really is. And I've known people, very smart people, very capable admins, who went in to flow for the first time and couldn't figure it out. And they didn't really, they're like, I'm just going to leave it to you. These were people on my team at the time, right? I'm just going to leave it to you, Mark. You know what you're doing. You be the flow guy. And then, I'd keep hey, you really should learn. Over the course of the next year or two, I'd keep poking them, keep having them try it. And they'd get a little bit further and no. And then, literally, I want to say 3 years in, 3 years after they tried the flow the first time, they get in and they're like, no, I get it now. I get it now. Two people, again, very smart people, very capable admins who had trouble with flow for 3 years. Granted, they didn't apply themselves very hard into it because they had other things they were working on, but 3 years, they got it. And that's the way it's just going to be for some people. Some people are going to understand flow right off the bat. Brian and I think we were the same way. Dale, I think you weren't first time, but you were second or third time. You were oh, I get this, right? Am I right about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think
these guys were time number 10, and that's just what it takes sometimes.
Well, and so, at least, the three of us and several other admins, having immersed ourselves in flow to learn its nuances, to learn the syntax, the proper methodology and everything. What Salesforce gave us was a gateway into development.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to know
and
code.
Thinking like a developer.
Exactly, which means, okay, great, we have this wide open playground, but you now have to account for absolutely everything. The ball is not perfectly round, meaning it's not going to, if you bounce it on the ground, it's not going to bounce straight up. It's going to go wibble wobble somewhere if you don't know how to wrangle it in. And going back to having some inherent skill sets, it definitely takes understanding how to break something down to its lowest possible degree.
So here's something. You sent this in your email. You talked about your fifth grader, right? And you talked about something he was doing that when you saw it, you were like, "Oh, this is just like flow."
Yeah,
and you were astonished. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think that it's a really good story.
Absolutely. So my 10-year-old Mark is in a Lego robotics league, and he started it up at the beginning of the school year, and after a few weeks, I was finally able to join in and join on as a coach. And I was working with some of the other kids, like third graders. Actually, it's third through fifth graders, and they get the little the main motor unit, the brain that then you build the Legos and everything around it. Which there's a design component to that, but then from an actual, what are you going to make the robot do? They can do it on an iPad, they can do it on a computer, but they are doing flow. For every action that you want the robot to do, you drag an element into the canvas and you say, okay, which motor are you controlling? Is it the one that controls the wheels, or is it one that controls the arm to grab something? But that is one element. And within that one element, you say, how many times do you want the right wheel to move? How many rotations and at what speed? And then same thing for the left wheel. And then when you're done with that element, or a step in a flow, you bring in a new element that first one connects to the second one, to then say, you're going to go 15 rotations down the line. And then you're going to stop, bring in a new element, tell it what to do. and on the other motor that lifts an arm up to pick up an object and then move, drop, whatever. But it was a flow canvas where you may have in a flow go do a record update on an object where the ID equals a variable and go capture other field information, pass those into variables, go into your next element to do something with those variables that you just picked up on down the line. There were decision elements in this in the Lego UI. There were loops. Same thing happens in Flow. Kids are picking this up. I didn't have to explain.
Well, and kids are
thing to
kids,
them.
though, right? Kids' brains will just absorb anything. That's the trick. Is it's so easy to just like say, "Hey, kids can get this. Why don't you get it?" And that's unfortunately, I think that's a bit demeaning. I don't think that's necessarily fair to people to just be like, "Why don't you get it? That's your fault." You know, if their brains aren't wrapped around it, their brains aren't wrapped around it. They can't help themselves.
Well, and that's true. But I mean, these kids had the desire to join the Lego Robotics League, knowing that they were going to be learning some basic programming skills or some methodology of process. They had that want to, and I think that then translates back over to us in our ecosphere of if there is a platform or a functionality that you want to learn and grow with and really get the most out of, you're going to want to. And it's okay if you don't want to, because again, having inherent skill sets, everybody has that comfort zone that we hope will grow from there. And not everybody's path is going to be the same.
That's true.
Would be my argument to that.
And nobody should be disparaging or disparaged for that, for either way.
No. And
No.
I don't want it to be misunderstood that it's flow or nothing. I don't think any of us say that. It's that there is functionality that I could see where it would be easy to deem it difficult, but again, if you haven't given it a fair shake, is it maybe just not the functionality for you to tackle?
You see, I look at this as a little bit larger picture. You know, it's not necessarily about flow. It's about basically learning anything new, right? A lot of it is attitude. If you come in with the attitude of, oh, this is so difficult to learn, I'm never going to be able to manage it, you're going to find it really difficult to learn and hard to manage, right? No matter how much effort you have to do. So your mindset helps a lot, you know, from that standpoint. Your willingness to go back to it over and over again and try different things. Like if you do something and you go, oh my gosh, that was a failure. Failure is good. Failure teaches you something. And that way you might know, oh, I need to go out and grab some resource. Maybe I need to go talk to someone who's already an expert of this. I need to find a new blog or a video to watch or something. But it gives you that incremental step. And I think the challenge that people have today is understanding that learning in general is an incremental step process. It is an attitude process. And you're not going to be able to do everything right off the bat. You know, right. When I've talked to people, they get this idea that they're going to be able to build these beautifully complicated flows and get frustrated when I say, well, let's start with the quote hello world situation, right? Let's create a screen that literally just outputs text that says hello world, you know, and then let's build off of that and do one little step further. You know, let's build lots of little things that may be absolutely useless to your org, but is incredibly invaluable to you learning a new feature. You know, and I think that's really difficult for people, especially in today's world, because it's all about, in a lot of companies, a small amount of time, you need to get results, and not a lot of time to learn new things. And, you know, that's where, like, Salesforce Saturday came out of things to give people that meantime to go learn something new.
Well, and I think there's also something to be said about as we all get older. I mean, I'm 36. I've been in the Salesforce world for 6 years. I'd like to think I'm good at what I know, but I've devoted pretty huge chunks of my brain to really, really learning the things that I know. So to then have to think about, okay, so there's a whole new piece of functionality. Like for me, learning Apex coding. I would love to do it, but I'm trying to figure out my available brain space right now to cram in that new thing to learn. In amongst everything else that I already think I know well, it's harder as you get older because there is a natural element of potentially getting set in your ways. Or if you have been doing the same thing for so long, potentially without a need to learn that new thing, and then you want to challenge yourself, it can be difficult. It's about creating the space for yourself to be open to learning it, and not just going back to what you know and creating perceptions of new things based on what you do already know.
So, give love a chance.
Exactly. Is all we are saying.
Yeah. Is that all we're saying?
Well, there's lots of things in between the lines. You just have to look for them. But like Brian, going back to your point of just all the resources that are out there, when I was trying to learn how to ride the Flow bicycle, I kind of went about it backwards. I had the Flow build. I knew the elements were there and that they were solid, but they weren't doing anything. And it took, Mark helped me out with the actual flow a lot. I mean, being right there, I was able to tap him at a user group meeting or whatever and say, hey, can you help me with this really fast? And then Brian, it was you posting about, URL hack or whatever the proper bad term is. But the reason what I was trying to do wasn't working is because I didn't have a way to get that entry information in there. That was through a blog post that you did. That was that one final piece. So it's knowing those resources out there that once you're confident that you've taken it as far as you can go, not being afraid to seek out getting to the finish line. There's nothing anywhere that says you have to do any of this by yourself. That's why we now as MVPs try to contribute whatever we can, again, based on what skill sets we have. We're not going to try and speak to things we don't know about, but we definitely are going to make our brains available to anyone and everyone of what we do know about, because we know we can help somebody.
Or at least die trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I claim to not be authority on anything. I try.
Yeah.
I know that I know nothing.
I appreciate what you guys have been doing through this forum, though, that it does create conversation. And again, it's not meant to disparage anybody. And if anybody listens to what I've said and what my perspective has been and feels like I am being disparaging, I sincerely apologize. I don't mean it to be that way. I think there's a lot of us that we do want to challenge ourselves. We know we need to be challenging ourselves. Failure is good, but we have to first be okay with the fact that we're going to fail to understand that failure can be good. And that's a hard thing to overcome.
Thank you, Dale, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, I will come back for another day. So
On time this time. So, Mark, have you seen the conversation in the Twitter sphere about Flow going away?
I did. It was. What?
Yeah.
What?
Someone picked up somewhere that Flow's going away. Salesforce doesn't like it anymore. It's getting the boot. What? It's being left by the wayside. It's just gonna be gone. There'll be no more Flow.
I mean, is it true?
Well, you know who would be really good to talk to? We should ask the product manager himself whether or not.
Yeah. I mean, but how? We're in the middle of recording a podcast, Brian.
We'll pick up the WizardCast
send him
phone.
An email?
No, pick up the WizardCast phone and just call him.
Oh, all right. Hang on. Is it just gonna? What? It's gonna connect to him magically?
Yes. Because
WizardCast. Okay. All right. Hang on. Let me see. Okay.
Hello?
Scott?
Yeah, this is Scott.
Oh, hey. It's Mark and Brian
Hi, Scott.
from the WizardCast.
Dudes, what's up?
How's it going, man?
It's going well, thank you.
This phone is magical, Brian. What the hell?
It
Like,
is. It's
how did-
almost like we're using the same gimmick twice in one episode.
I know.
So, Scott, we got a question for you, but for our listeners who probably don't know who you are, can you give us an introduction and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my full name is Scott Kozinchik, and I'm a product manager at Salesforce on the process automation team. I joined Shelly Ersig's team earlier this year. Prior, I'd been at Salesforce for 3 years in another group, but I'm stoked to be here and get acquainted with this community. So far, I'm loving it.
So I know Scott
It's
because
really crazy. Yeah.
Scott and I did a Dreamforce session, 2016, I guess this year still, about Flow. So he's my new Flow 2 guy. So
Oh, I like that actually. The
Flow
Flow
2
2
guy?
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like if you're learning how to ride the bicycle Flow, you're really riding a Flowsicle.
I'll let you have that one.
Okay.
I don't know that I'll reuse it.
Okay. Yeah. That's weird.
Flow
All
training wheels. That's Process Builder. Okay. Anyways, I don't know. Have you saw the Twitter conversation that people were freaking out that Flow is going away?
I did. Yes. It reminded me of some other Twitter conversations I've seen spiraling lately. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
This is a safe
Yeah,
zone
but
podcast.
I did see that, and I do want to say that it was unfortunate to see it have any momentum at all, because it's just categorically not the case.
And there you have it,
Oh,
folks. There,
jeez.
end of episode.
Freaking me out, Brian, over nothing. Thanks.
Look.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
It's not nothing, and you're a terrible actor. So, anyways, Scott. So, why would people be thinking that it could be going away?
Okay, so before I continue, I'm just going to read this tattoo that I had to have tattooed to my arm when I started at Salesforce, that says that I'm about to speak about future-facing statements. I'm about to make future-facing statements, and you should make all of your buying decisions based on currently available technologies, otherwise known as Safe Harbor.
Safe harbor.
So as long as we're clear, one of the things I love about Salesforce is we can talk about future-facing stuff. It's not like Apple. I have a good friend who works at Apple, and every time I ask him a question, sometimes I just ask him the question so I can see the look on his face, where he just either a smile or a smirk or whatever. But anyway, so we can talk about this stuff. So this is great. So I suspect, Brian and Mark, that it's because the Flow Designer, the Cloud Flow Designer, is still in Flex, which is, as we all know, is an Adobe-based technology based on Flash and ActionScript. And so, and it is very much our intention and desire to get to build a new we're actually already working on it, but to build a new builder that will not be Flex based, because browser support, Google is not a fan of the Adobe Flash player, and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's going to be it's not going away anytime soon, but it's going to be people are going to have to manually install it at some point, I think in early 2017.
Manually install.
Yeah,
You're
like
talking about the
in
Flash
Google.
plugin?
My understanding is
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, is that Google Chrome? You don't have to manually install the Flow Designer. I'm talking about the Flash player.
Flash. Yeah.
Because we used to have to manually install the Flow Designer.
Yeah.
Do you guys miss those days?
No,
No.
I don't miss
Not
it at
at
all.
all.
I do not miss uploading .flow files. No.
You don't want Flow Data Loader?
No. No.
Okay.
Never again.
So maybe the rumor was built around the fact that we need to replace the Flex Designer, and somehow it got contorted into that Flow's going away. But that's just quite the opposite's true. We're actually investing more in it, and not only will the builder be better, but we're bringing all kinds of new functionality to the underlying engine that I think you guys are going to go a little nuts for. So
is the Flow that we know and love, like what we can do with it now? Are we going to be able to still do those things? Are we going to lose anything with the new builder?
No, it'll gain.
You'll gain.
Yeah, the whole point is anything that exists has to continue to work, and anything that you can do today, you need to be able to continue to do today. That's not to say that we may not come up with better ways to do it that are easier for people to learn or that are faster for you to do, or so it may not look exactly the same. It's not like we're just going to take what's in Flex and just build it in HTML and in Aura, but yeah, it's not going to be a step backwards.
So there you go, folks.
Thank God. Thank
Calm
God.
down.
Yeah, let's all just calm the safe harbor down, okay?
I like
It's
that. Calm the safe harbor down.
Well,
Great.
Steve Mollis is kind of known when he's talking off the cuff for colorful language, and so when we had him on his podcast, we decided that whenever there was colorful language, we would replace that language with him saying "safe harbor."
it's literally our bleep.
Yeah,
That's
it's our bleep. So it's a terrible, terrible joke, but we love it so much. I
Great.
was very dismayed when they changed it to forward-looking statement at Dreamforce.
Yeah, I was just about to ask if that's what you have to say now. Calm the forward-looking statement down.
That doesn't sound. That sounds like you're. It does kind of sound like you're cursing a little bit more, though.
It does.
Because of
That's
the-
what
because of that
Forward-looking
F.
statement. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
No, I think it might add a nice little comic twist, though. I kind of like it.
Okay, so I know this is probably a huge safe harbor question
Mhm.
to ask you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're in the process of rebuilding the designer now. What we know is probably not going to go for a way. So I'm going to make the assumption that we're probably not going to see anything new designer wise in 2017. Safe assumption.
You use the word "see anything" designer-wise in 2017. So,
As in
I don't think
Flux
it's a safe
Flash
assumption.
base.
I think you guys are going to see something in 2017, but let me qualify what I mean by that. In that, I believe you guys and others in the community who have committed, your time and passion to this product. We want to involve you, and we want to show you early prototypes and get you using stuff in pilot form, and we want you to see designs even when they're just static vector-based images. So I think you will be participating in and seeing things in 2017. It's too early to say whether you'll be using anything in 2017.
Okay. So for at least for the next year, no one needs to be really worrying about that anything's going to change, other than they might have to manually install the Flash plugin for their browser.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And here's I saw it in several people mentioned it in the one Twitter thread that I saw that you forwarded, which is that the Flow engine is the underlying technology behind Process Builder, and it's going to be the underlying technology behind a new approvals engine in the near future. So the Flow engine we're investing in, and so the idea that we're going to invest in the engine but get rid of the user interface just doesn't add up or make any sense.
I'm so happy right now.
Am I saying too many things?
No.
I don't know. Are you?
You're saying all the right words, Scott.
I don't know. If I get my wrist slapped, maybe the next session will go differently. But I know Shelly's excited to talk about this stuff, as am I, and you guys are such a fantastic community that we want to be able to be open with you.
All right. So I think we put to bed the big concern that Flow's going away. It's not going to go away. In a year or two, maybe a little bit further out, the designer is probably going to get changed to something else because of it's built on Flash, and we want to get rid of Flash for many reasons. But Flow as a piece of technology is not going to go away. So with that to rest, you kind of teased out some things that we might expect somewhere down the future, like the new approval process and the new designer, and things like that. Anything coming out for spring 17 that people should potentially start getting excited about now, or is it too early?
It's a little too early. We're going through the spring release planning process, as not as we speak because it's evening, but tomorrow I'm going to go back to the office and we will be continuing that process. So it's a little too early.
I tried. Mark.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I
wanted to-
tried. Trying to get these exclusive hot shots on the chance that our podcast gets more than 2 listeners.
Yeah.
So-
well, hello to both of you.
I think part of the other reason, because we did have a correspondence that came to us a few weeks ago, and I believe it stemmed from somebody talking to somebody at Salesforce about the lack of support and documentation for Flow. And that was a concern for
Yes.
that person.
It was specifically Salesforce University training.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I'm work very closely with and very much like our doc writer.
I like your doc writers too.
And,
That's Samantha
she works, she works extraordinarily hard at making sure these docs are incredible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, she's awesome.
yeah, I happen to believe they're amazing. But Salesforce University, yeah, that's another story.
So that I think also sparked some of it, perhaps to a degree. Like if there's no education going into it, and the statement was that there's not, that they have numbers, that Salesforce has numbers, that Flow has not got a lot of user base, that because of its perceived difficulty, that people aren't using it, and therefore there's not a lot of room for investment in things like university and other extraneous things.
Gotcha. So one of the things that I'm enjoying about hearing this from you guys is it's revealing to me like something that Shelley and I, tangible, something we can do, which is go work with the university folks and work on getting better content into the university tracks. That's very much something we can do to get the word out, especially since, the Flow Designer, it helps to have someone kind of show you the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. And then from there, it's not too hard to get going. But as far as that logic that because it's not in the university, because there aren't that many users, et cetera, that's not really the case. It's very similar to what you see in a lot of areas in life and business, where we have fewer users of Flow than Process Builder, but the businesses that are using Flow are using it for much more complex cases, and they tend to be much larger businesses that have much more volume going through them. So we're seeing that classic asymptotic curve where, yeah, we have a ton of people using Process Builder for very simple things and running tons of little simple processes, which is fantastic. Anything that makes Salesforce easier to use or more powerful for you, amazing. And if it can affect more people, awesome. But there are enough very large customers using Flow for very complex things that it's super critical to the business and to our customers. Like we've said this a couple times now, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you got to pulp it, Scott. You got anything you want to throw out there to the masses?
Just if you are listening to this and you have very specific ideas about what you would like to see change in the Flow Designer, please reach out to me and Shelley and let us know.
And you would like them to reach out to you how?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I'm trying my hardest.
I saw your Twitter.
Shauna,
I saw your Twitter account, Scott.
Yeah, I know Shauna and Shelley are pretty good about following Twitter. I am not the best. I'm not the best Twitter twitizen. I don't know what it's called.
Twitter?
Yes.
I don't even know what the words are. That's how bad it is. But if you do tweet, I will get it. It just don't expect fast response. But really feel free to, if you only have 2 users listening to this, feel free to email me. The only problem is that my name and my email address is complex, but it's are you ready for this?
It's an audio recording. It's recording. Now,
Okay.
now, to be fair to you, we should let you know that typically we get about 150 listens in the first week. So
that's a manageable number. But let's just stick for Twitter for now. Make sure you tweet you make sure, is it @mention? I think it's
yes, it's
that's what it is. Yeah, okay. So make sure you @mention myself and Shelley both, and then one or both of us will get you and let us know why you're tweeting. You want to participate in giving us feedback, and we would love to hear from you. Now, I have to warn you in the reverse direction that we're probably gonna not only want to hear your initial thoughts, but we're probably gonna want to rope you into looking at screens and using prototypes and stuff later on.
Oh.
yes, please.
Sign us up.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
so how about we do this? if people want to give you feedback on the Flow Designer, they can use a hashtag Flow Feedback. That'll make it easier to find. Amidst all the other tweets you're going to get, right? But what is your Twitter handle?
I think it's at Scott Cozy. So Scott Kozy _ SFDC. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Pretty sure that's what it is. And the _ SFDC part's very important. Otherwise, you're just going to see a bunch of stupid stuff about Formula One or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, it is SCOTTKOZY _ SFDC.
Exactly.
There you have it, folks. If you're interested in giving some feedback on the Flow Designer, what you would like to see changed, added, or what have it, go tweet at Scott. I'll put the link to his Twitter in the show notes to make it easier for folks. Hashtag Flow Feedback would be helpful in case Scott suddenly gets deluged with other tweets so he can actually, find it easier.
Deluged.
And make sure that you include Shelly Ursig as well. And Shelly's handle on Twitter is Shelly, SHELLY _ SFDC.
And one final note, I am realizing there is something that I would love for you guys to know, which is dynamic screens, which means creating flow screens. You're going to be creating dynamic rules to control visibility of fields, visible or not visible, and also required or not required, dynamically based on conditions. We're going to be piloting. The pilot's coming out in the spring release, and we're going to want people to sign up for the pilot, which just means ask for the permission to be turned on. And you do that through your normal support channel or AE, and then we'll get that turned on, and you guys can use it and let us know what we got right and what we got wrong, so we can fix it up and get it out generally available in the following release.
So when you say dynamic pages, you're talking one screen element that will change based on feedback of previous fields in that screen.
Yeah, like if you choose
no next button required.
Yeah, so if you choose, let's say you have a list, two different pick lists, and you choose iOS and you want to show a list of iPhones or iPads, instead of having to go to a decision node and then to the iOS screen, right there on the same screen, you choose iOS, and then the correct pick list field will show up. If you chose Android instead, the Android field would show up. So you can do more on one screen with fewer branching nodes in the Flow Designer to different screen pathways. So that should be very helpful for a lot of people.
So awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I've had that.
Yeah. We're getting it now, Brian. We're getting it now.
Yeah.
We're getting a pilot now. Now we'd have to get the actual plane, and it has to take off. And...
Yeah, I think you guys will be pretty happy with it. I mean, there's always a chance, you have some suggestions that'll make it, N% better. But we've spent there's a term we use, blitzing, which basically is just jump all over this thing and try and break it. And we've been doing that a lot, and we're pretty happy with it. So hopefully you will be too.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate the tidbits. I especially appreciate the confirmation that Flow's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And really appreciate the fact that you responded, because I emailed you today to try to record tonight, which I know
Scott
is a ridiculous request.
What are you talking about, Brian? At first I heard of this was when my magic phone rang.
Oh wait,
yes. That's right, Brian.
Oh, darn, I broke the magic law.
Jeez. Wow,
thank goodness we have an editor that could edit that out.
Nah.
That's work. WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script drawing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, joke saturation by Brian Kwong, and our intern this episode was Dale Ziegler. Dale, you need to make sure you bring Mark his Pepsi tomorrow. You understand that? He's tired of him not getting his Pepsi.
Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com, or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automatically. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, it's really helpful if you leave a review. It helps other people find our podcast. Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm gonna play around with this magic phone some more. This is pretty crazy stuff right here.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Thanks for listening.